Bring in Areva Martin, civil rights attorney, and Sara Azari, criminal defense attorney. Sara, the core issue here is self-defense and whether Rittenhouse's use of force was justified. The two men Rittenhouse killed were unarmed, and the prosecution in closing made this point to jurors. Listen.
No one is saying that Mr. Rittenhouse did not have a right to defend himself. Punch him in the face, kick him in the testicles, knee him in the face, hit him with your gun. You don't just immediately get to shoot someone.
Sara, how significant was this argument in terms of the charges Rittenhouse faces and the lesser charges as well being allowed?
Yeah, and so, you know, the prosecution's key arguments, and by the way, I disagree with Areva. I don't think they've established their case. I don't think they've met their burden. But, you know, the idea here is that they argued he provoked what ensued, calling him a chaos tourist. You know, provocation was the headline of their closing argument, that he didn't have to kill, but did. And they even compared him to the third victim who survived, saying that he had a pistol, he chose not to shoot. Well, you know, the threat to one is not necessarily a threat to another. And then they ultimately argued that the force that was used was not proportional to the threat that was posed. And that might have been the strongest argument they had. But, you know, I think one of the things that really struck me is how wrong the DA was in arguing to the jury that just because Rosenbaum was unarmed, that somehow there's no self-defense with respect to him. You can absolutely defend yourself, even if the person you're before is posing the threat is not armed and does not have a weapon. The question for the jury is, did he act reasonably? The jury's ultimately, despite all the confusion with the jury instructions, et cetera, is going to think, what would I do in that same situation? Would I believe that I was facing an imminent threat of great bodily harm or death? And would I be justified in using deadly force? Or would I have had to do some of these other things the DA alluded to, the kicking, the hitting, or the running away? I think the defense, Anna, did a really good job at painting the real picture of Mr. Rosenbaum. You know, he was not just this peaceful protester there. He was a violent, angry man who had been instigating, ambushing, and threatening Rittenhouse. And I think that really matters because, you know, when you're talking about provocation, they have not been able to argue a single fact that supports provocation with respect to the response by shooting. You know, is it enough to be in Kenosha with bad ideas in your head? I don't think so.